Good evening, everybody. I'm going to call the May meeting of the Washington County Committee of County Services to order. We welcome everybody this evening. Great to see the public and fellow justices here. One housekeeping item, I want to remind the public and the justices that we removed the Finance and Budget Committee meeting next week to Monday. So just a reminder that the Finance and Budget Committee meeting will be on Monday. With that, Justice Lemming has done us the honor of prayer and pledge this evening. Justice Lemming.
Let's pray. Father, we just want to say thank you for the many blessings that you give each and every one of us, each and every day. Father, just be with us tonight as we can conduct the business of the citizens of Washington County. Father, if there's anyone out there that's lost that don't know you as your personal Savior, please, there's people that's Saviors, we'll be praying for them. We ask all this in your Son's Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Justice Lemming. With that, we have adoption of the agenda. Justice Lemming.
Judge, I'd like to, is it the time to take one off or add one, or do we just want to accept the agenda right now?
Yes, this is the time to make any amendments.
I think so. On this ordinance number 7, line item 7, there's some confusion there. I mean, part of it says one thing, and then in line 13 says one thing, and line 35. Can we put that off till the next committee meeting?
Yes, you can make a motion.
I'd make a motion to do that.
Make a motion to postpone item number 7 to the next County Services Committee meeting. Motion made by Justice Lemming, a second by Justice Ricker. Any discussion on that item? Justice Coger?
Yes, well, that's my ordinance. I don't understand. What are you saying, Justice Limley? I'm having trouble following your... No?
Are you open for questions, Justice Lemming?
Just vote on it.
Okay.
Well, I think I deserve to know what's wrong with
Okay.
Just a second. It's against decorum to address another member of the body, Justice Coger. You can address the chair.
Okay, Mr.
Unless the other member allows. He says he's ready to vote. Do you have any debate upon the addition or subtraction of that item, the postponement of it?
Well, I don't want it postponed, but I'd like to understand what the problem is so
Okay.
I can clear it before next time.
I appreciate that. We have a motion to postpone to the next County Services Committee meeting by Justice Lemming, a second by Justice Ricker. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ms. Myra, will you call a roll call, please?
David Wilson. Yes. Sean Simons. Kyle Lyons. Lisa Ecke. Chandra Washington. Beth Coger. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Willie Lemming. Gary Ricker. Butch Pond. Pass.
That motion will be postponed until next month. With that, we were emailed a list of ineligible applications for the ARPA funds that your colleagues would like to hear this evening. I have included a list of that, I believe, in your handouts this evening, so you can see both the applicant name, the requesting justice, and the total there requested. Is that still the wish of the body to add these? Would anybody like to make a motion to add these? Justice Ecke?
Thank you, Judge. I don't know if other JPs have had the same issues that I've had. I just had my email account reinstated, and I have not been able to retrieve any emails, even if I go on to the website through a separate browser. So I'm going to vote no, because I haven't, this is the first I've seen it, and I haven't studied or made any phone calls or research on it. So for me, I'm saying no.
Thank you, Justice Ecke. Justice Coger?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we add these to the agenda, all these that are on here.
I have a motion to add the list provided to you to the agenda. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Justice Hires. If added, these will be added to line item number 10. But first of all, let's take up the vote. I have a motion to add all these items by Justice Coger, second by Justice Hires. I'm sorry. You can. Justice Hires?
Thank you. I'd like to implore the body to keep these on here because several of these people are here tonight and prepared to present to us, and I think that that would be a terrible waste of their time to tell them that we're not actually going to do the thing that they prepared themselves for. So I'd like to implore you to take the time to hear them tonight. Thank you.
Justice Rios Stafford?
Thank you, Judge Deakins. I only have one item on this list, New Beginnings NWA, who I've been in contact with, and they feel that they sent us all an email. I realize it sounds like some JPs haven't been able to see that yet, but I just wanted to summarize it real quickly. They feel that they were improperly labeled as ineligible because even though their facility is based in Fayetteville, the clients of the facility come from countywide, and they believe that this is definitely an issue for the county because
I appreciate it, but we need to add them to the agenda if we're going to discuss the merits for any particular project. So I respect that, but I think we need to respect the process. On the amendment, Justice Simons?
Thank you, Chair. Is the representative of the Economic Development Commission here to speak to the reason why they were deemed ineligible?
Ms. Baker is here for questions if we have them.
Fantastic, thank you.
Justice Coger?
I was just going to speak to my motion. I've been contacted by several nonprofits who feel like their application, maybe the third-party vendor did not understand exactly what they were trying to say in their application. They feel like their applications were denied while others.
I'm going to stop you. We're going to debate the merits of any application if it's added.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's two sides to this story, and we're going to respect the process. So,
sorry.
Any debate on the addition to the agenda, or the amendment to the agenda, excuse me? Justice Ecke?
Thank you, Judge. Process and procedures were established with the previous administration when we first received the ARPA money. The decision was taken out of our power and authority. I don't see why we are forced into hearing this again if this is not within our power or authority to change anything. So I question even this being, the nonprofits being invited when all those of us know that you can't do that, but they did it anyway. And that puts us in a conundrum of do we or don't we? But it was going against policy and procedure to even get this on the agenda and to invite them. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Ecke. Justice Washington?
Thank you, Judge Deakins. I would just, excuse me, encourage all of my colleagues to please support this amendment. We've been talking about this for quite some time of having a discussion, and we've been told it will happen. It'll happen at a county services meeting, and we've kept moving it, and we've kept moving it, and now it's May. And I just think that the right thing to do is to go ahead so that we can have this discussion. I believe that the members of the public and the residents of Washington County deserve to hear what these agencies have to say, also to hear what the counters to those are, so that we can finish this application process out and be finished with it. So I would encourage everyone to please support.
Justice Lyons?
Thank you, Judge. I guess I'm a little concerned and curious that there was a process put in place. You fill out an application, you provide certain information, that's looked at, and then a decision is made based on the application you provided, the information you provided. But now we've added yet a change to that process that some can come in and change what they've told us in the application and expect a different result. And I just believe that puts us in a quandrum of not following the process that was identified and not really being fair across the board.
Thank you, Justice Lyons. Justice Washington?
Yes, I just have a point of information. So is the purpose of this to have a discussion, or is the purpose to change the process? Because I was under the impression that this was a discussion. So I would just like clarification on that point.
All right, guys, we're getting to where we've had multiple speakers here on this. Justice Simons, I think you've only spoken once, correct?
Correct, sir. Thank you, Chair. I respect the fact that we have a process, but at least in one instance, that process is proven to be somewhat flawed or at least questioned in the validity of whether a particular applicant was eligible or ineligible. So I would like to make sure we do our due diligence to see if, in fact, these are ineligible. And I would like that the professional that we hired to make that determination articulate why they were deemed ineligible, and if there's valid reason why that was a mistake, it'd be presented. But again, like, let's vet this out, so if they are eligible, we get that changed, and if they're ineligible, we clarify why, and we move on with the process.
I very much want to push back on the rhetoric that this process was somewhat flawed. Now, there might be a difference of opinion, but I think the designation that the Economic Development District made on these applications per the county instructions, whether you were here or you inherited the process, I understand there's arguments for both, but I hesitate to say it was flawed. And so I don't want to start off tonight with that kind of, that mindset. Justice Lyons?
I think. Okay, thanks, Judge. So I'm confused with what we expect the result to be then. If we have this discussion, we go through it, what's the expectation, the result, that who makes the determination that it wasn't ineligible, it should have been eligible? What are we looking at here?
I would say that the reason we consulted with the Economic Development District was to have an independent review of these applications. I don't know if I'm answering your question, Justice Lyons, but I'm trying to do it justice. Now, there are, of course, differing opinions on those applications. Of course, applicants very much feel like their applications are eligible and should be funded, of course, and I appreciate their passion. But the process was laid out for that very specifically so that we could get an outside perspective on this. And so I don't know if I've answered you, or I've done the best I can, I assume. Justice Lemming?
I'd like to call the question.
Call the question. Okay. I have a motion to call the question by Justice Lemming. Second by Justice Lyons. All those in favor? Those opposed? Justice Wilson? I rule that failed. Justice Wilson?
I want a roll call vote for that.
You're out of order. Justice Wilson?
I just wanted to ask if the chair could restate the amendment for purpose of clarification.
The amendment was a motion to amend the agenda to adopt all of these applications for review that were deemed ineligible, but requested by your colleagues to add to the agenda. So everybody should have a handout that looks like this. We had a motion to add those to the agenda by Justice Coker and a second by Justice Hires. Does that answer your question, sir?
I was under the impression that those were already on our agenda this evening, but
We have two sets. The ones on your agenda this evening were the ones that were deemed eligible by the county criteria and the criteria of the American Rescue Plan Act.
okay.
The ones on the handout are applications that were deemed ineligible, but that the Associated Justice of the Peace has requested be added to the agenda for further discussion.
Thank you.
Justice Coger's requesting to be recognized by our ordinances. We can speak twice to any debatable item. Would anybody like to make a motion to suspend the rules? Let her speak for a third time. Justice Hires?
I move that we suspend the rules and allow Justice Coger to speak for a third time.
I have a motion to suspend the rules by Justice Hires, a second by Justice Rios Stafford. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? No. Roll call. Ms. Meyer, will you please call roll on that, please? This roll will be for suspending the rules and letting Justice Coger speak for a third time.
David Wilson. Sean Simons, Kyle Lyons, Lisa Ecke, Shonda Washington, Beth Koger, Robert Dennis, Suki Hires, Evelyn Rio Stafford, Willie Lemming, Gary Ricker, Butch Pond.
That motion fails. Without further discussion, I'd like to take up the question. We have a motion to amend the agenda to include the ineligible requested applications by Justice Koger, second by Justice Hires. All those in favor? Those opposed? Motion fails. Ms. Meyer, will you please call a roll on that?
David Wilson, Sean Simons, Kyle Lyons, Lisa Ecke, Shonda Washington, Beth Koger, Robert Dennis, Suki Hires, Evelyn Rio Stafford, Willie Lemming, Gary Ricker, Butch Pond.
Motion fails. With that, we're going to take up a motion to adopt the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? As amended. If you remember, we amended to take item number 7 to the next. So I have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended by Justice Ricker. Second by Justice Ecke. All those in favor? Those opposed? The agenda is adopted. With that, we're going to move into our monthly reports. Director Tinsley, do you have the juvenile detention report for us, sir? Good evening, Director.
In the month of April, we had 30 intakes, with the average length of stay being 6.87 days. The average daily population for April was 12.87. The highest number of intakes were classified under assault misdemeanor at 6. Of the 30 intakes from Washington County and Madison County, 18 were from Division 3 and 12 were from Division 8. There were 5 total transports, 3 were law enforcement transports, and 1 was performed by JDC and 1 by a parent or guardian. Are there any questions that I may address at this time?
Justice Koger?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
I think you turned it off. There you
Sorry.
go.
How is the staffing at the Juvenile Detention Center right now? Are y'all pretty much staffed to what you need?
Yes, ma'am. We have 3 vacancies left. We haven't been this staff in a long time, so it's the staff is working hard. We're just working on getting everybody trained on how they need to deal with the juveniles in the facility. But yes, ma'am, we are making some significant progress.
Which vacancies? You said you're 3. Are they like juvenile officers that you're vacant, or?
Yes, ma'am. So we're down 3 juvenile officers, 2 supervisors and 2 juvenile officers at this time.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. I don't
Yes,
have any
ma'am.
more.
Additional questions for Director Tinsley? Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Good to see you.
You too.
Sheriff's report, Sheriff Cantrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our monthly report, we talked about our calls for service last month. I think J.P. Stafford had mentioned that they were higher, and if there was a reason for that, if it was an anomaly, and the numbers are back down a little bit this month. So spring, we always see a little higher call volume. So we're not concerned about the increase in the calls for service. Detention intakes are down a little bit from last year, still 914. Only got to send 10 to prison this past reporting cycle, so we still have 167 waiting to go down to the Arkansas Department of Corrections. You can see our average daily population of state prisoners, federal prisoners, our pretrial and county commit average daily population. So still a full house, 804 at this moment in jail. You know, we had 40 intakes today, and so far we've only been able to release 22 of them. So maybe overnight some more of those will get out. But, you know, we're still running a full ship down there. Well, I'll answer any questions about that report, and then if the chair will indulge me or the court will indulge me, I'll give a brief update on our construction progress and where we're at on that.
Questions on the sheriff's report? Justice Coger?
Sheriff Cantrell, this report looks a little different. It's not as detailed as the previous reports have been. Is there a reason for that? I mean,
Well, we just trying to streamline information and what we think was important and what we usually get questions about. So we tried to modify our report to what the interest of the court was.
okay, could you remind me the pretrial ADP? What is that again?
Average daily population of our pretrial detainees for the month for this reporting cycle.
That seems high, but I see it's lower than last year.
Yeah, we were over 500 at some points last year, so it is a little bit lower.
Okay, okay. You don't have the 309s listed on here that I see. How many 309s do we have right now?
40.
40, okay. Okay, thank you.
Justice Dennis?
Thank you, Judge. Good evening, Sheriff.
Good evening, J.P. Dennis.
I'm not hearing real well tonight, so on the construction of the new facility,
Yes, sir.
are you going to cover that?
Yes, I was going to give a brief update on it if the court will allow me. It's not on the agenda,
Okay.
but I did
Yeah,
want to.
I'd like to hear about that. I'd like to know why the gentleman that came and gave us the estimate was so far off. So
Yes,
I'd
sir.
like to hear about that.
Are there any other
Yeah, take
questions
it up
about the
later.
report?
That's fine.
About the report? Justice Coger?
Sheriff Cantrell, I forgot to ask this, but there was discussion about having a public defender at the jail. Can you tell us how we're coming on that?
Well, we don't have one yet, but I think there is a discussion ongoing with the Public Defenders Commission in Little Rock, and then the Public Defender up here. So we're hopeful that it's a positive discussion that we'll soon get somebody up here. But I think it's Greg Parrish's decision on whether to send someone up or not. He's the director or the administrator, whatever his title is, of the Public Service Committee or Public Service. Public Defenders Commission.
But I had heard that he had okayed that, so that's why I just wondered if you had any discussions with him that you might could update us on that.
No, I don't have any updates. We have a space available and we're ready at such point as they decide to send someone.
Okay, thank you.
I had heard the same, and it would be extremely helpful if everybody on this horseshoe would send Mr. Parrish an email and tell him what a great benefit that'd be to our county. Any other questions on the report? With that, I'll let Sheriff Cantrell give his update on the construction, and I'll return the floor to Justice Dennis if he has questions at that time. Sheriff Cantrell?
Yes, sir. Well, just a quick history lesson. You know, we had our work session with our architect back January of 2021, and the construction manager, the architect, came together. We had a work session, decided what we thought we needed at the sheriff's office and what we thought we could afford, and so they came up with a estimate on the costs that week, and then they went back to their offices and started drawing plans, got the plans completed in September, and we're ready for bid in October. But this was since this was a separate project than the large expansion we'd asked for on the sales tax issue on the jail. This was separate from that. You know, we were looking at for the sales tax for a 750 or 1,000 bed expansion to take us to the next 20 years. And so that we felt that getting this out for bids in October might confuse people that were interested in this particular project. So we said, well, let's hold it off till after the election. see what the big project does. If the big project passes, then we may not even need this. We may be able to use this money somewhere else for some other project down the road. But it didn't pass, so we brought this back forward to get ready to put it out for bids. That was in December. The construction manager said the contractors are probably not going to be very interested looking at bids right around Christmas. We put it off till after the first of the year. So now we're a year in on our estimates. We're already a year in what we thought the estimates were. So we put it out for bid. We opened bids in March. I think we put it out in January, opened bids in February, had them tabulated in early March, and the bids came in. So some of the bids came in high, some of them we didn't get a bid on. We rebid. There's 25 packages, and we finally got 25 bids. And some of those bids, like 12 of them, were right on target of what they projected or a little under, and then 12 of them were over by about 30%. So anything that seemed like anything that had to do with concrete or steel or plumbing was much higher than what the project managers had anticipated. So we are at 26.7 million. We're 6.8 million over what was allocated by the court, and so we have gone back to the architect to find some place we can reduce those costs. One of the housing units that was going to be the male housing unit is 96 beds, estimated to cost about $7 million. So that about covers our $6.8 million shortfall. So we are redrawing a set of plans without that particular building in place, and then we will put it back out for bids. They have the architect has it now. We'll send it to the state fire marshal and the state jail inspector for their approval for these new plans this week, and hope to have it ready by the 12th to see about getting it back out for bids. In the meantime, we've learned that we can utilize some government cooperative programs that are similar to a state bid that governments are allowed to utilize without going to a bid, that we can just get a quote, and if that quote meets what our specs are, then we can utilize these people that are part of this cooperative bidding program. So that's kind of where we're at. 16 months into it and still haven't turned a spade full of dirt. That may not have answered your questions about why it was some of the things were higher, but I think it's the cost of goods and services are going up daily, as we see in our personal lives.
Justice Dennis?
Thank you, Judge. So what's the total amount? You probably know what the total amount, what is the total amount more? How much more is it now?
6.85 million. Excuse me, 6.825.
And I guess I'll go ahead and just make a statement. I'm a little upset about it, and I'm going all the way back to when Marilyn Edwards was judge. And I sat here on the court, and I said that we needed to build a bigger jail, and had a lot of protesting about it. A lot of people saying, no, we can't do that. We can't lock more people up. And if I remember right, we would have saved about $44 million by doing it then versus waiting to do it now.
In 2018, we came forth with a proposal with an estimate of $38 million to add 750 beds for $38 million. But, you know,
I guess that's what I'm choking on, is the fact that we could have done it so much cheaper then. And then now the citizens have said they didn't want to expand the jail, and that was, okay, that's the same scenario as it was before. So what I want everybody to understand in Washington County is the only place that prisoners go is the Washington County Jail. City of Fayetteville doesn't put someone in jail, in their jail. They go to Washington County. Springdale goes to Washington County. Everybody's goes to Washington County. State prisoners come to Washington County, or crimes that are there. Is that correct?
That's correct. Fayetteville and Springdale are not constitutionally mandated to have a jail. The sheriff is constitutionally mandated
And
to
so-
operate the county jail.
So we see Fayetteville build a new building. That's just to house the officers. That's not to house any prisoner. Every one of those prisoners goes to Washington County. I guess that's what I want the people to understand what the county has to pay for. And that's for everybody's prisoners. So, it takes a lot of money to take care of them.
Yes, sir. You're correct.
Thank you for what you do.
Justice Fleming?
Thank you, Judge. With all that said, that's the price of kicking the can down the road. How many beds is this new addition?
Well, there's 132 beds in a separate facility that will set out near the current work release building, and then there are 4 additional medical beds in the medical suite.
So you're 132, is that taking the 95 out?
There are 96 out, yes.
So they will be how many total then?
Well, 136 total beds. in this-
136. Well, I think we need to cut corners everywhere except bed, because beds has been our problem. I mean, that's our problem. That's what we need to fix. So I don't know how to add all this other stuff we need to, but I mean, the beds is a problem.
Yeah, yes, you're right. Yes, sir.
And we're gonna have to figure that one out. I think we need more beds than we do. I know that when you get booked in, I know that's busy there too, but I think we need to really look at the bed space. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Justice Simons?
Thank you, Chair. I think it's pertinent to point, we've got a global big box retailer right up the road that's got some pretty significant commercial expansions that are happening throughout the next 5 to 7 years. And we're already seeing in that industry them sucking up workforce for services. So in that construction industry, not only are we paying an increase in cost of goods and services, but we can't find people that want to do this type of project.
Yes, just
First off, it's a government job, so it probably doesn't pay, right? We're talking about the lowest bidder, but it's also hard to get people to want to do this type of bid when they can go get Walmart money up the road to do a job without the type of regulations that are going to come with this type of project. So it's difficult to get people to want to do this, much less to come in at bid.
Just an anecdotal note, a local electric contractor who would normally probably bid on our project said that he couldn't bid on it because he had bid on the Walmart project. He didn't get that project. He didn't get the bid, but the bidder who got it came down and contracted all his employees from this particular electrical contractor. So he doesn't have any employees. They're all contracted up to the person who did get the bid. So, I think that's part of the thing we find ourselves in is there's a lot of construction in Northwest Arkansas. That's where we find ourselves.
Justice Pond?
I want to make sure nothing went over my head on this. All this expansion we're talking about is all got to do with COVID, quarantine, and sick beds and that sort of thing.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
And what we've lost is the beds that we can't afford to do now was for quarantine for the men.
Well, that was, the men was our original purpose. Now we may reconfigure or reassign some of those beds to men on the 132 bed portion, but that was by design to keep the women and the men in separate buildings.
And it's because of everything becoming more expensive. Just to keep everybody in mind, I'm not trying to say this in a negative way. We all need to remember what's hurting or going to still be hurting is because we're going to have to use the work release part of the facility to house those men. Is that?
That's correct. It's going to be harder to get our work release thing back operational just because of the need for those beds.
You're my guy that explains to me where we're at down there. So we're still going to be lacking in the work release because of the COVID quarantine. Okay.
Yes, in the short term for sure. If the state were to magically figure out a way to get rid of 100 or 120 25 of their people, then, you know, we might be able to move some people around and have a little bit of space to work with. But, excuse me, until they get some of those people out, you know, we're still 150 or 60 on the floor every day.
And I want to pay a compliment to something earlier, because I never look at 309s as just some kind of I don't know, just a place to put some people. The 309s, many times they leave here and they go to a job where maybe you've given them a recommendation.
Yes, sir. You know,
There are many skilled individuals, and they're moving back into the citizen population with a skill, with a trade, and I've always appreciated that. So maybe we won't see them again.
Well, that's our hope.
And so there's more to that 309 program than people think about. It also, generally, it's individuals that would be sent off to some place hundreds of miles away from here and very far from their support group, their family, if you will, where many times their family, their support group is right here in northwest Arkansas. But I thank you and appreciate what you do.
Thank you, J.P. Pond.
Justice Leming?
Jay, what is the total bid on this job? I know it's 6.8 over. What's the total?
Total bid that we received was $26,645,000. So 26,650.
626 million.
26,650,000.
Yeah. We was talking about the people being the problem with this. All of us that's in construction, in 2021, you could buy a yard of concrete for about $100 a yard. It's costing about $200 a yard now.
Yeah.
And,
Plus
and all the plumbing, and the reason that is Walmart's took all the providers that provide concrete and plumbing and all them, you know, they've got all that stuff up there, and that's why it's cost so much here, is because we can't get it, and that's why that prices drove up. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, and then there's a fuel surcharge on top of that concrete.
Oh, yeah.
Per yard.
Justice Coger?
Yes, thank you. Sheriff Cantrell, you mentioned something when you first began talking, and you said something about government cooperative bidding program. Could you explain what that is going to mean? I mean, we're going to be, as far as bidding goes.
Well, there are certain companies that vet themselves through this process, and then they're on a national and a statewide program that has been vetted, that government entities and agencies are allowed to utilize without going through the competitive bidding process. They've already been vetted, and their prices have been vetted, and so it's just another option the county has. And we use them occasionally on small projects. Haven't explored using them on this type of project, but it is something that's allowed. And so we've talked with County Attorney Lester and County Judge Deakins and his chief of staff about different options, and we think this is something that we might be able to utilize versus the competitive bid process.
Okay. When you talk about the building for the beds, are you still talking about the pre-engineered building? Is that what we're looking at? It's going to be a building like fabricated or something?
Part of it is a pre-engineered metal building, and then part of it is a concrete block, a hallway, and dividers within that building. But the outside structure is a pre-engineered metal building.
And where will the classes be? I thought we were going to have room for classes.
They'll be inside that pre-engineered metal building. There are spaces dedicated for classrooms and for multi-purpose areas.
Okay. And
within that 132 bed unit.
And when you talked a while ago about moving people out, Don't you think also that if we had like pretrial services, we could move people out with pretrial services?
Well, we can get into our different philosophies. I think pretrial services are designed for people that are outside the jail. I think they're the people that are most in need of it, of the resources that are available outside the jail. I think the people that are stuck in jail are going to end up there for a long period of time, and the people that move on downstream to the prison are going to be afforded those services once they get to prison. The county jail was not designed to house these people for a year, 2 years, or 3 years or longer. The county jail is just a short-term holding facility to hold somebody until they can get through court and then move on either downstream to the prison system or get their probation or parole or whatever they get. So, we can do some small things within the county jail, but I don't think we can do big projects within the jail like a workforce training. I don't think we could put a welding program down there and teach someone how to weld, or a carpentry program. We might could do some 12-step things. We might could do some GED, some smaller things that take a smaller footprint, but pretrial services, in my opinion, are things that should happen out in the free world.
Well, my colleague mentioned kicking the can down the road. I'm just going to say that I think we're kicking the can down the road when we don't address alternatives to incarceration, that like in the criminal justice assessment study from 2020.
Yeah. County sheriff has very little control over who gets incarcerated.
That's true. Thank you. That's all I have.
Any other questions for Sheriff Cantrell? Justice Secchi?
Thank you. Hello, Sheriff. Went to the AAC meeting, and your name came up. You were down there testifying, and Lindsay French was saying how terrific you are. So they were singing your praises, and a lot of that had to do with FOIA. So how many FOIA requests are you receiving? Have they gone down, or are they increasing?
Right now, they're down a little bit, but it just takes one big incident for them to go up. One high-profile incident to somebody comes to jail that's has celebrity status, or a football player or something like that has done something wrong to come to jail. Then they'll jump up. For right now, they're not overwhelming.
Like they were before. But you also have hired somebody to handle that because it was taking your staff away from their duties.
Right, yeah, we've got Kathy, that's on Kathy in our records division. That's her primary responsibility is to deal with the FOIAs that come in.
Also, could you clarify and let everybody know out in Washington County that you are a jail, not a prison, and yet the state is using the county jail, Washington County Jail, as a prison?
Well, I think that across the state, all the county jails make up a pretty good-sized prison. There are probably 1,800 or 2,000 people statewide in what they call county jail backup, waiting for a bed to come available. So yeah, we are the county jails in and of ourselves are a medium-sized prison for the state.
Yes, but if the state would assume the responsibility of these prisoners, they would be afforded the rehabilitation, the education, the help that they need to try and reform as citizens. But while they're sitting in county jails, they don't, do they?
That's correct, yeah. The state has programs in place, and some really successful programs.
They're very successful.
But they can't begin them until they get there. These are 18-month to 24-month programs.
Right, but we as taxpayers already pay taxes for all of that, don't we?
That's correct,
and yet, everybody that is a state prisoner and you're holding them in the county jail isn't afforded any of that, are they?
No state programs. No, they're not afforded any state programs at the county level. So, yeah, we're not designed for that. The county jails were never designed for that. But the state, in the governor's defense, he's trying to find some short-term housing, and they're looking at some provisional beds and maybe some out-of-state contracts. So I think they're working to find something. But
I want everybody to know that we cannot duplicate those services that the state is providing those prisoners here because we're not a prison, we're a county jail.
That's
And
correct.
so it is a public sector's responsibility. I will say it's the responsibility of churches and nonprofits to help reform the people that are in there. We're already doing it there. We're not designed to do it here. We're just a jail.
That's correct.
And I think you're doing a good job. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Judge.
Additional questions for Sheriff Cantrell? Good to see you, sir. Thanks for coming.
Mr. Chairman.
With that, we're going to move on to our Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee update. Coordinator Smith.
Yes, sir. So the Fayetteville PD had 52 referrals, and the CSU diversions had 57 referrals last month. Returning home had 5 graduates last month, which is up from 1 graduate in February. One thing I do want to point out is that on the prosecutor's office, there was some discussion during our Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee meeting that the numbers from the prosecutor did not make sense, so because they kept increasing instead of ebbing and flowing with the new cases. And so I took a look at that, and it turned out that I was being sent the cumulative numbers instead of the month-by-month numbers. So the corrections are that in March there were 259 dispositions, which means that they had just as many dispositions as they had new cases. And in February there were 201 dispositions, which means they had 6 more dispositions than new cases. The continuances are continuing to rise. However, I will be looking at those to see reasons behind those. There are some that we can't control, such as crime lab and mental eval, but there is, on the request for a continuance, there is an option to say that it is one of those things. There is also an option to say whether it is the state or the defendant requesting that, and so I am pursuing that to see why that number is so high, and I will stand for questions.
Questions for Coordinator Smith? Justice Coger?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Smith. Remind me how many people returning home can accommodate at one time?
Currently, they can accommodate 16 at one time. However, they did just move to a new location that will expand that. And another thing is that during this time of moving to their new location, they are in a little bit of a bind where they have fewer capacity. But they hope to be finished with that with their move in May.
Okay, and that was 16. Is that what you said?
I believe so.
16.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is it 36? 16 devoted specifically for Washington County, though. Oh, I'm not sure what their capacity will be.
Additional questions for Coordinator Smith? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Item number 7 was tabled. That means we'll move on to new business. Item number 8, tonight we welcome the CEO of Washington Regional, Mr. Larry Shackelford. As part of our partnership with Washington Regional, every year they come in and do a little bit of an overview of the year. We had him scheduled for last month and had a little bit of a scheduling conflict, so we welcome him this evening. Good evening, Mr. Shackelford.
Thank you. Good evening. So Washington Regional started as Washington County Hospital in 1950. At that time when we opened with 50 beds, and we've grown since then to 425 beds, and our main campus is right over 725,000 feet. In 1988, we became a private hospital, and at that time entered into a long-term lease with Washington County. That lease requires that we operate a general and surgical hospital in a safe and skillful manner. It also requires that I come to the quorum court each year and give an overview of Washington Regional. We are required to maintain a level of free treatment, and here to report this evening that we provided in excess of $25.1 million of care at our cost to those that could not pay for that care. And that compares to $18.2 million in 2021. Our annual report is entitled Above and Beyond. It's hard to believe where we have come over the last 3 years, but for the 3,400 workers at Washington Regional, many at the point of care really are going above and beyond. I'll just hit a few of the high points. No, your agenda is lengthy this evening. But in 2022, we recorded 62,861 urgent care visits, over 54,000 ED visits, performed 26,778 surgeries, provided almost 13,000 televisits, and that's probably a positive that came out of COVID, is the number of visits that can be done in that way. At Washington Regional, we delivered 2,512 babies, treated 1,275 trauma patients. We're the only level 2 trauma center, and we cover about 26 counties in Arkansas from a trauma standpoint. Treated 897 stroke patients. Again, as a comprehensive stroke center, we're the only stroke center located of that caliber outside of Little Rock and Tulsa. So we serve a very large area. We welcome 33 new providers and opened 1 clinic. One of the big pieces that we have been working on is there's an ever-growing number of medical students in Arkansas that when they finish medical school, they have to do a residency before they can actually practice. And so we began a program to add 90 new residency slots, worked with the Arkansas Legislative Council and received some funding in order for those to start. And I'm pleased to tell you that the internal medicine residency program will begin this July. We have 8 residents that will be entering that program. All 8 of those have ties to Arkansas in some form or fashion. Either they're from a hometown in Arkansas or received their undergraduate or medical education in Arkansas. So we, as Washington and Benton County, there are about 30 fewer internal medicine physicians than our population ratio would say that we should have. And we think by training them, if they come and live in Northwest Arkansas while they do their training, the opportunity for us to recruit them when that training's done is very high. In addition to the graduate education, we're also working with medical schools, increasing the number of medical students from UAMS that are doing their 3rd and 4th years in Washington Regional. And then we entered into an agreement with Alice Walton. The Alice Walton School of Medicine broke ground just this last month. She anticipates having 60 medical students a year starting in August of 2025, and Washington Regional will be where most of those students will come and get their training during school. It's always nice when folks from the outside recognize you as an institution. The U.S. News and World Report named Washington Regional as the #1 ranked hospital in Arkansas. This is not a reader's choice type survey, but it looks at 8 or 9 different areas that we were ranked high in outcomes and good from a cost standpoint. Those include heart attack, heart failure, hip replacement, kidney failure, knee replacement, lung cancer, stroke, uterine cancer. And this is actually the 2nd year in a row that Regional received that award. And last year it was the first time a hospital outside of Central Arkansas had been named as the top rank. So that's really encouraging. There's also a group called Leapfrog that looks at patient safety and issues a hospital safety grade. And Washington Regional received the A rating as the top rating out of, and I believe there were 5 hospitals in Arkansas that received that rating. So with that, I'll pause. You've got that report in detail, but those are some of the high points I'd like to point out, and be happy to answer any questions.
Justice Simons?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being here. A couple of questions. And first off, thank you for the work that you're doing, retaining homegrown talent and recruiting talent from outside. We saw, especially there during COVID and afterwards, kind of this demand for travel nursing. And I think last time we spoke, you mentioned we have some of this homegrown talent who are leaving local institutions and applying for travel nursing jobs at exorbitantly high rates of pay and coming back to work, maybe not in their same position, but a very similar position. Are you still seeing that be a driver for increased cost of employing this help?
Yes, sir. We have seen that ebb and flow. We chose to use some of the support from CARES Acts and others to offer our own employees, nurses who wanted to work extra shifts or work extra time, to pass those funds along so that we could compensate them similar to if they were going into those travel environments. I think we had a lot better success then in not having to use agency or contract nursing. But I would say we still have probably somewhere around 20 contract nurses. We've been working with a lot of the nurse training programs at NWAC and at U of A. And our goal is whenever the graduates from this last class finish, then we will be successful and not have any travel nurses at Washington Regional.
That's great. And great segue into my last question was, can you speak a little bit to your involvement in the upskill program? I know you're kind of very plugged into that, and exciting to see where they take that.
So upskill is a program that we've worked with to try to take folks that are interested in furthering education. One of the big things we heard is if you're working and you want to go back and be a nurse, having options to do your clinical rotations outside of the Monday through Friday 8 to 5 would be very helpful. So there, again, we worked with NWAC. Just this last year, we started 40 new slots that have night and weekends that they can come and do that training. Upskill helps them if they need help with travel, if they need help with childcare, if they need help with the cost. But the big constraint that a lot of the programs have is there's just not training slots. There's not places they can get the textbook education, but it's those other pieces. So that's been a really good program.
Thank you.
Justice Coger?
Thank you. I just want to kind of piggyback back on what Justice Simons just asked about upskill. How many graduates or people coming from upskill have you been able to employ?
So of this first class, I believe there were 6 that came through the upskill program. Now, keep in mind, it's often a 2 or 4 year program from when that starts to when they'll be able to be done. But the first class that we were able to get through NWAC, and I believe there were 6 from that last class.
What were those positions mostly? Do you have any idea?
Nursing.
Nursing,
Yeah,
all?
that's-
Okay. LPN?
Probably a
CS.
paramedic may have been a part of that, but the biggest for us has been nursing.
Okay, thank you.
Justice Ecke?
Thank you, Judge. This is a personal testimony of what you all did for one of our employees, a supervisor. She went in with a massive headache, and your team immediately diagnosed that it was an aneurysm. She went in, they did whatever the neuro testing they did. I was in the emergency room with her husband and her daughter and waiting the results. And I would say within 30 minutes, she was being life-flighted to Little Rock, where she was diagnosed with 6 aneurysms. One was slightly bleeding out, which was causing the pain. They were able to remove 4 successfully, and they're watching the other 2. She has to go back and get examined. But had it not been the response of Washington Regional and your staff, you have 6 aneurysms. Where would she be? She's been our faithful employee for 20 years. She's a loving, devoted mother, wife, and grandmother. And I want to say thank you to you and your team. Within 30 minutes, she was in life flighting out. So, thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Any additional questions for CEO Shackelford? We appreciate you joining us this evening, sir.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. With that, we're going to move on to item number 9. Item number 9 is an ordinance amending Ordinance 2018-50 to update the vacation policy in Washington County Employee Handbook, item 23-0-063. When I first came into office, one of the things we wanted to continue to look at outside of, we talk so much about our compensation in this body and the money and the dollar values we put on our employees, but one of the things that was suggested to me is that we look at our vacation policy, try to make that more competitive, and really try to match it more towards our municipal neighbors in terms of our public employees. So this ordinance is a result of weeks and months of work, and I'm going to invite Director Burchett up here to go through this and give you the high points and let you ask some questions. Director Burchett.
Hello, everyone. So the policy that you have before you, like Judge Deacon said, is a culmination of months of work, and essentially right now our current vacation policy, our employees accrue their time based off of hours worked. So a part of this proposal is to move our employees to a monthly accrual where that would not be based off of their biweekly pay period. Another part of this would be for employees to actually utilize their vacation instead of banking it as time, to encourage them to utilize their time. For us to require our employees at the minimum to take 40 hours of vacation annually. The purpose behind that and the thought process behind that is there have been studies that have shown that if employees actually take vacation time, they are more motivated, productive, and their mental health is better upon returning to the workplace. So I think that it is to our benefit as Washington County as an employer to emphasize that to our workforce and to encourage breaks from their job that they do and serve the citizens of Washington County within. So this proposal before you, it breaks down what a regular full-time employee would accrue based on their years of service, uniformed officers, part-time employees. It does say seasonal temporary on here. The only reason they are on here is to point out that we do have a portion of our workforce that fall into that category. This is no different than what our current policy allows for that group of employees. We do not currently provide vacation to seasonal or temporary employees, okay? But I didn't want to leave them out. And so with that, I guess I'll just take questions. I don't really know what else you all would like me to say.
Yeah, there's a couple stipulations that, the reason the vacation policy really came to my mind too, and what this policy does is, previously or under our current policy, you have to be employed for 50 weeks to take, essentially a year, to take advantage of your vacation time. This policy would shorten that to 6 months. And so that became an issue for me in the hiring field, where we're asking people to come train, get ready, get prepared for their jobs, but we can't give you a day off for a year. And so I just want to highlight that's one of the major things. Director Burchett has pointed out this has special provisions for uniformed law enforcement. And we've worked with the Sheriff's Department for that because we know that's a very stressful job, and we want to take care of those men and women if they're willing to serve us. Another main component, this might get into the weeds, currently all of our vacation anniversaries, or any anniversary for our employees, is on the calendar year. Is that correct, Ms. Burchett?
That is correct, yes.
So this moves the anniversary of accruals and things to the employee's hire date. So each employee will have an individual anniversary date. What that does is helps us as the county from a logistics standpoint, that if people have vacations towards the end of their term that they want to use, we're not trying to accommodate that all at the end of the year. It happens throughout the year at their anniversary date. So that's just a couple of the highlights that I see as very majorly beneficial. And then once again, like Director Burchett said, please ask questions and discuss. Justice Lemming?
Thank you, Judge. I've talked to a couple that's getting close to retiring, and they're thinking they're going to get shortchanged a little bit on that. Can you say anything to that, or does that make sense?
So there have been some concerns brought to my attention from some of our employees in regards to that. So that is all going to be contingent on whenever they retire. So depending on when their retirement date is versus their actual original hire date with the county, that would determine on whether or not, that would be a determining factor into whether or not how much they would get paid out at the time that they would leave. So I don't want to say that's an accurate statement, but it may be. It's all situational. It depends on whenever that person decides to leave the county and what their hire date was. So I would have to have a date in order to really tell you, are they going to lose time per this policy?
We probably don't have too many of those.
I did do a rough report in the preparation of this just to see. Originally, the roll-off or the maximum accrual amount was actually a lot lower than what you see before you tonight. Going through JSAP committee, the electeds that are on that committee, there was some unease about dropping it down to that amount. And so we came, or I guess I came up with the recommendation of some employees, this rubric for accrual drop-off. And so this would have really shifted the statistics I had at the time. Prior to this changing, it looked like it was going to affect maybe 43 people. However, the 43 that it was going to impact for the original policy for roll-off, what made up those was maybe like a few hours here or there. It wasn't very much for them to get into compliance with this policy. So at the most, what I saw was we would need an employee to take 2 days, which would be 16 hours to get into compliance, is what I was seeing. So 43 people versus 650 plus. I don't think that that's a huge number.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Justice Dennis?
Thank you, Judge. I'd have to have it spelled out for me here, but I just think a Washington County employee is a Washington County employee. And I love the Sheriff's Department and all of them, and I want them to have the best, but I also want the rest of the employees to have the best. So help me understand what's the difference for, you said a while ago, for a Washington County Sheriff's Department and a Washington County employee.
Okay, so uniformed officers are individuals who work shift work, and they fall under what's called a 207K exemption. And so they are scheduled for 84 hours in a 2-week period, or excuse me, they can be scheduled for up to 86 hours in a 2-week period. I believe right now they're scheduled for about up to 84. What that means is those individuals do not start actually accruing overtime rate until they work that 87th hour. So I will say it's pretty common across the state of Arkansas to provide law enforcement officers who fall under that 207K exemption an additional bit of time. But when really you do the math, their shifts, it breaks down to be about equal what an 8-hour shift employee would be, because they work 12-hour shifts typically.
Okay. That's what I wanted to hear then.
Yeah, yeah.
So it is equal then?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I appreciate what the law enforcement do, and I didn't want to take anything from them, but I also appreciate what the others do. You know, some of them have to work for the judge, and so think what that's like. I mean, you know, so, you know, they have hardships too. So anyway, with that being said, I just want the regular employees to be taken care of as well. Thank you.
And the sheriff's department did have ample opportunity to review this and make their suggestions and tweaks as well. So, as well as the other elected officials. So this was a very collaborative process, I guess is the way to put that. Yeah.
And while I've got the floor, I'll go ahead and champion the regular employees that work for the judge and other employees. I want them to have the raises too that they need. Thanks.
Justice Coger.
Thank you. Okay, I was just wondering if we have circulated this among the employees. You said you've talked to the sheriff's office, you've talked to the elected officials, but what about the employees that are going to be affected by this? Have they seen this and been able to comment on it? Because they might have a better insight, you know, as to how this is going to affect their lives.
Well, I would say that employees have had the opportunity because it's been on JSAP for the past couple months. And so I would say yes. And some of the changes or adjustments that were made through JSAP were at the recommendation of other employees not under the county judge. So those employees came to me and conveyed their concerns. And so I did take those into account and, you know, tried to implement them, you know, at this month's JSAP meeting.
Okay, so you saying they've had a couple of months to look it over?
I would say yes. If they've paid attention to the JSAP agenda, I would say yes.
Well, that kind of concerns me because I don't know that they pay attention to JSAP. I mean, JSAP is just posted on the county calendar. I mean, I don't know. I'm just wondering if we shouldn't at least try to get, you know, let the employees who are going to be affected by this, let them have some say as to it before we actually do it. That's my only concern. That's all I have.
Justice Simons.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Burchett. This is obviously a lot of work that you put into this and collaborating with the electeds and the judge's office. I'm excited to see this kind of requirement to use a week's vacation every year, both to put us in a competitive advantage in the hiring process, but also for the effect that it'll likely have on our insurance rates. So to your point of happier, healthier, more productive employees, hopefully won't get sick as often, no time out of work, no medical expenses, pharmaceutical usage, like that'll save county dollars. So thank you for incorporating that in there.
Justice Ecke.
Thank you. I don't know if you got my numerous texts, but it kept on saying not deliverable, and I'm going, what is wrong with you, Siri? I want to say thank you for making these pins for us.
Oh, you're welcome.
And bringing awareness to autism. It's close to your heart, and this was made with love, and you can tell. And I want to let you know that I wore that Saturday. I put out my clothes, and I put my button. I said, I'm wearing this to the AAC meeting that we had in Little Rock. And it piques interest. What's that for? What's that for? You know. I know that when I have my bracelet on, people ask me, what is this? And I share with them from my heart what my experience was. So I want to say thank you. And I really, really like it a lot.
You're welcome.
So good job.
Any other questions or comments for Ms. Burchett? Director Burchett? Motions or discussion on this item? Justice Ecke?
I'd like to make a motion that we pass this on to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation.
Motion to pass to the full quorum court with a due pass recommendation by Justice Ecke. I'm going to second Justice Ricker. Any further discussion or questions? Any public comments? Seeing none, we're going to take up the item. I have a motion to pass item 9.1 to the full quorum court with the due pass recommendation by Justice Secchi, a second by Justice Ricker. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Item 9.1 will move to the full quorum court with the due pass recommendation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Burchett. All right. With that, we're going to move on to item number 10, discussion of available ARPA applications. This is the way I'd like to handle this, subject to anybody's pressing. We're going to bring these applicants up and let them present. I'm going to ask that everybody be cognizant of the time and everybody's energy spent here this evening. If you have additional questions, since these are eligible ARPA applications, of course, ask the applicants anything you would like. If you have additional questions for Ms. Baker, she's back there, Counselor Baker from the Economic Development District. I'm not necessarily going to bring her up after each one of these, if you're okay with that. And then also, Ms. Baker, if you have any comments you'd like to add at any point in the process, please stand and we'll recognize you if that's okay. And with that, we'll just go ahead and get started if everybody's okay with that. First up on our agenda, we have the Credit Counseling of Arkansas. Do we have a representative for Credit Counseling? Please come forward. Please state your name, your title, and just give us a brief overview of your program and why you think why you would like to see it funded from the ARPA funds.
Okay. My name's Mary Catherine Harcourt. I'm the Executive Director at Credit Counseling of Arkansas. Credit Counseling of Arkansas has been around since 1995. The proposed grant that we submitted was to fund some of our budget counseling that we do. That's a free service. I was listening to some of the reports earlier and talking about returning home and upskill. Both agencies that we do education with and support those people and get them back out into the community, along with many others. So this would help fund us. We during COVID, of course, we lost a lot of our business. Our people weren't coming in and seeking help at that time, but we're seeing a big return now, a big uptick in the need.
I'm so sorry. What was your name? Say it again for the record, please.
Mary Catherine Harcourt.
Ms. Harcourt. Any questions for Executive Director Harcourt? Justice Secchi?
Thank you. I know that understanding finances for people that were incarcerated and coming back is just a life skill that you all provide. But I do have a question.
Sure.
Are you eligible for any other grants? Like, have you received any other grants outside of ARPA?
Yes.
You do?
We do. Most of our grant funding has gone towards like mortgage delinquencies,
okay.
Counseling and stuff like that, but not for specifically for budget counseling that we're doing.
Okay, so
this was proposed for.
So you're not aware of any other grants that would be available to you for budget counseling?
Not at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
Justice Coger?
Yes, thank you. I have a question about procedure. I'd like to make a motion that we approve this and send it on to Finance and Budget, but there's no ordinance, so I'm not sure how that's going to work, Judge.
Yeah, this is discussion this evening.
Okay, well, I would like to make a motion that we approve this.
Well, I think you just answered your own question by saying there's no ordinance in front of you. I mean, I don't know what you're motioning on.
I'm sorry?
We don't have an ordinance in front of us.
Does this mean that they're going to have to wait then until come back to Finance and Budget?
And
How does it
when
get
an ordinance is drafted,
well, how does it get approved then from here to Finance and Budget?
you have an ordinance drafted.
So
you bring it to committee, and the committee votes on it.
But you mean next month, though?
Absolutely. When the ordinance can be drafted.
I just hate for them to have to wait that long. That seems like we should be able to.
I'm sorry, the process is what it's supposed to. Do you have questions for Mrs. Harcourt?
No, I don't.
Okay. Any other discussion or questions for Ms. Harcourt? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
The next items up are senior activity and wellness centers for Elkins, Farmington, Fayetteville, Lincoln, and Prairie Grove. Are there different representatives for each of these projects, or will they be spoken for at once? What's the pleasure?
I guess it would be the pleasure of the court. I'm the executive.
Come up here to the microphone. You can at least kick us off, and we'll offer the microphone to others if they would like to speak, sir.
I'm Brad Bailey, the Executive Director of the Area Agency on Aging. We cover 9 counties in northwest Arkansas. This grant, of course, is specific to the 5 centers that we operate in Washington County. During the COVID pandemic, we basically had to shutter our doors except for curbside pickup. And, you know, when we can't bring the seniors into the senior centers, it really affected our fundraising during that time. We were able to get other grants, and funding was shifted at the federal level. Say, like, we had to quit transportation, but they allowed us to do home-delivered meals with that, and the same with congregate meals. Our seniors centers here, about $1.7 million is the budget for Washington County, and a large portion of that is fundraising. So as the pandemic winds down, some centers, the people are coming back more readily. Some of them are slower, but the fundraising, we have fallen off on that. And so we were hoping to get consideration for this grant as a stopgap so that we can get back geared up to all of our fundraising efforts and even actually have a little extra for capital improvements and things like that. In recent years, general improvement funding used to be a great resource for nonprofits, fire stations, just different public entities. It was the way that we were able to do roofs a lot of times, air conditioning units. Some of these facilities that we operate are large, and these repairs are costly. So a portion of this money would be used for upkeep, salaries, food costs, just the whole range. And the services that we are offering are congregate meals, meals in a group setting, home-delivered meals for qualified people that meet the criteria for that, socialization, transportation, and exercise programs as well. So I didn't really have a set presentation. I was more here for questions, I suppose, and I do have a lot of my team with me here today. Most of the directors are here with the exception of one that had a family event that she was not able to attend tonight.
Great. If you're open to it, I'll open the floor to questions, and we'll just see if you combat them. If not, we'll bring up some of your team. Is that good with you, sir?
That's good with me.
Justice Simons?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Bailey, for being here. Are you seeing success with other counties? Obviously, you said you serve other counties in this area. Have you received any ARPA funding from those other counties?
Not from the county. We do a lot of different services. We have an in-home program as well that's not related to this grant at all. And we did receive ARPA funding for that as a retention bonus, hiring on bonuses for personal care assistance for our in-home program. So, okay. So we have had ARPA grants like that. The smaller counties, senior center wise, they seem to be slower to gear back up and get the people back in. 3 years without having those doors open, we of course had a lot of turnover, just the nature of the business that we're in with elderly. And also during that time, you know, you couldn't recruit new people to come in as well. So it's kind of a twofold thing on the way that we were hurt by that.
Sure. The reason I ask is, are you seeing your capacity as an organization to receive those funds and abide by the regulations of ARPA? Are you navigating that process? Do you feel like you're having success in navigating the reception of these funds? Obviously, there's lots of strings that come attached.
Yes. Yeah, we're able to administer those. We're audited. We're required to have an audit annually, and we've passed those audits.
Great.
Yeah. Pull that mic closer to it, Mr. Bear. Okay.
My
Justice
apologies.
Ecke?
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Bailey, good evening. On the breakdown, what percentage goes to salaries?
I would have to do a computation on that. I don't have that number just off the top of my head.
Okay.
Y'all don't have the applications, I take it, that we submitted? But
I don't.
Oh, okay. With each one of these senior center applications, there was a breakdown
Okay.
of the salary, food costs, fuel costs, and their whole budget.
Okay.
As an agency, I don't know what the administrative cost share or the administrative allowance is on this, but
Okay.
we adhere to what the administrative charge that is allowed
Certainly.
for that.
Also, the amounts do vary, Fayetteville being the highest at 87. Do you know what their requests were?
Yeah, I have all the requests here. It's based on their budget and what they would have had to have raised during those 2 years.
Oh, so this is mainly the gap between fundraising?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Kind of to piggyback off that, with the entity in Fayetteville, did you submit an application to the city of Fayetteville to pursue their ARPA funds?
Do you know, Chase?
Okay.
No, we haven't.
Any other questions for Mr. Bailey? Thank you, sir.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you.
Consideration.
With that, we'll move up to the Lions Club. I see some Lions Club representatives here. If you'll come up, state your name, sir.
Thank you, Judge, and if it pleases the court, my name is Rick Bailey. I'm the secretary of the Fayetteville Lions Club. Fayetteville Lions Club has been proud and pleased to be able to serve Northwest Arkansas and Washington County and the city of Fayetteville for the past 100 years. We're celebrating our anniversary this coming weekend. Our application for the ARPA funds was based on the inability to collect money, donations, to fund our charity projects, eye exams, surgeries, school eye exams for students, pre-K, kindergarten, and first couple of grades in high school, in elementary schools, that we go around and visit the schools with a special camera that reads the eye, and the camera is capable of very precision diagnosis, but we don't do that. We either pass or fail. If it's pass or refer. If we get a referral, we give that to the school, that goes to the parents. They take it to their local optician, ophthalmologist, and get a professional eye exam instead of one by volunteers. We based our budget on the inability to, not our budget, but our application on the inability to solicit funds in person, standing in front of the Walmart, the neighborhood market, the Sam's Club, and with our hand out and our bucket and say, help the Lions, help the blind. And I have, I based that on our budget for that was $35,000 a year for those projects, for that income, for funding those projects, the eye exams. We can do eye exams and single vision glasses for $42, multivision for $74, and surgeries that can cost, cataract surgeries can cost upwards of $5,000. We can have done for $1,400. I welcome any questions from the court.
Questions for Mr. Bailey? I think that's a testament to the job you've done here this evening. Justice Dennis, did you have something? I'm sorry, I don't want to. Justice Dennis.
I'll just say that I'm all for you. I've seen a lot of results of children who can't afford glasses, and the Lions Club helps them out. I'm thinking that with our population explosion, you're doing a lot more, you're seeing more and more kids, are you not?
We are, and we're seeing a lot of transients. We also serve the people served by Seven Hills and by the Salvation Army. We've had scheduled surgeries for some of those, and they moved on before we could actually get the surgery done. We work in conjunction with an organization out of Memphis called Mid-South Sight and Hearing, and they set up the contracts with the doctors. The doctors provide their time for free. The $1,400 pays for the operating suite and the pre-op and post-op meds for that. So we're able to get those things done through them. We also donate money to other similar need organizations in the state. World Services for the Blind in Little Rock, Mid-South Sight and Hearing are just two of those. And also back to, every year, back to Lions Clubs International for their international outreach programs. And you may have seen, some of you, I see, wear glasses like I do usually. We take used glasses, clean them up, read them, and send them out to other countries on medical mission trips to other countries where people can get glasses where they don't have an optometrist to get them.
Well, you said that about some of you wearing glasses. I wear glasses, and I can actually remember sixth grade, you're in school, and they give you your first, they give you an eye exam. But I had some bad grades, and they were saying, he's a smart kid, but he's making some bad grades while I was sitting in the back and couldn't see, and didn't know I couldn't see. And so anyway, but that was my first experience with getting glasses. And so it wasn't 100 years ago, but it was ways back. So anyway, thank you.
Well, my flight surgeon told me when I turned 40 that my arms got too short to read the paper. So, got mine.
And thank you also for your service to Washington County.
Thank you, sir.
Rick worked for the coroner's office and is retiring, so thank you.
My pleasure.
Justice Simons?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the work that you do in our community. Same question that was asked earlier. Have you applied for the Fayetteville City ARPA funding?
We have not. The reason being, we are servicing Fayetteville. Fayetteville is the major Lions Club in Washington County. There are 3 others, but Springdale closed their doors. So we're getting patients from Springdale. We get patients from Elkins, Farmington. As I said, from Seven Hills through there. We do the eye exams up in Springdale with the Head Start programs throughout Washington County. And I didn't want to submit an application here and an application to Fayetteville, to Fayetteville or to Springdale or anywhere else. It starts getting complicated, and we're not asking to be funded, the whole program funded, but every penny that we collect from the public goes to the charity accounts. We don't have any administrative staff. We don't have any, our operating budget comes from our dues collection and from the members of the club.
Are you familiar with and confident in your organization's capacity to meet the auditing requirements?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Additional questions for Mr. Bailey? Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming this evening. With that, we'll move on to the Northwest Arkansas Food Bank. Do I have a representative from the food bank here this evening?
two of us came this evening. He'll be my backup.
No microphone needed for me.
No.
If you would like, you can pull up the chair, sir. If you- Go
Yes,
ahead and
ma'am.
start off by giving us your names for the
Yes,
record.
sir. I am Casey Cowan. I am the Director of Client Services for the Northwest Arkansas Food Bank.
And I'm Jeff Thacker. I'm the Director of Development for the Northwest Arkansas Food Bank.
So this evening, we are respectfully asking for $100,000. This would be to help our Washington County agency partners build their capacity. And we are actually asking for that amount, so it would be $50,000 to help this year, and then $50,000 to help in 2024 as well, is how we have it broken down. After COVID subsided, we realized that our partner agencies needed some help in some of them rebuilding, some of them just restocking and having the ability to serve maybe just the neighbors they were serving, and also to serve more neighbors as the need arose. And so as we looked at adding this to our budget, we realized we were going to possibly need help from outside sources. And so that's one of the reasons we're coming here to you this evening. But the biggest thing is we wanted to help our agencies, number one, serve more neighbors. Number two, serve our neighbors more nutritious foods. And then also, if possible, help them become client choice, which is where the neighbor can go into the agency and shop just like a grocery, where it gives the neighbor back kind of some dignity and respect of, letting them shop for their family themselves. So that was kind of the driving force. And in Washington County, we have 46 agency partners out of our 112 total. And in 2022, I can tell you that we served as many neighbors in Washington County as we did in our other 3 counties alone, which was Benton, Carroll, and Madison County. So there is a need here, and we would love to take your questions this evening to help you understand more about the program.
Questions for Ms. Cowan? Was it
Cowan, yes.
Cowan,
C-O-W.
sorry.
No worries. Yes, ma'am.
Justice Coger?
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate so much what y'all do for the community, and I saw your application. How did you come from 400,000 to 100,000?
In which area?
Well, your application says funding request is 400,000.
Oh, sorry, it should have always been 100,000.
We actually reduced the amount when we saw that there was a reduced amount that was eligible for nonprofits. Then we reduced the amount that we were asking for to the 100,000.
What did you see the reduced amount? I don't understand.
I believe I don't want to misspeak, but when we first applied, we were under the impression that there was a larger amount of money that was going to be distributed. When we saw that it was much smaller than we thought it was going to be, and that was on our end, I'm sure, but when we did, we thought it was right to reduce our ask amount down, 25% of what we planned on asking.
Okay.
So that there were probably a lot of reasons involved, but the point is that we thought there was going to be a bigger pie to be cut up, basically.
Okay, just everywhere I saw was 400,000, so I didn't understand the difference, but, okay, thank you.
Justice Lyons?
Thank you, Judge. Reading your application, if I took the note right, you got some ARPA funds through Benton County as well, correct?
We did.
Yes,
and
sir.
It looks like it's different, but can you just explain the differences in the 2 projects between this one and the one that you're funding through the ARPA County?
The ARPA funds that we received from Benton County were going straight to brick and mortar assistance with our new food bank that we're building in North Lowell. That will be to better serve the entire 4-county area, obviously, that we deal with day in and day out. So we made them a different ask. And when we thought about Washington County and what we might ask of you all to consider, we took into the majority of the work that we do is obviously in Benton and Washington County. but we do a lot more in Washington County than we do in Benton County. And because we're always looking to fortify our mobile pantries, and we're always trying to expand that in our client services, this would be go for grants for our agency projects and such, so they can better serve their clients. And so those were the difference between the two. They wanted to make a gift to go straight to the new food bank brick and mortar, and we thought that this would better utilize the money in Washington County.
Thank you.
Justice Simons?
Thank you, Chair. Thankfully, my colleague kind of addressed the white elephant in the room was that you guys had received ARPA funds, which tells me that you are capable and comfortable with the reception of those funds, which we've had discussions about. But I think it's important to note that these funds are going direct to services, not for a building project that's not in Washington County, even though you do serve all of Washington County.
Yes.
Let Benton County fund your building. We're helping our neighbors, right? The food banks.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Yes.
Also, you mentioned the client choice. I'm glad you mentioned that because through some of our conversations in the past, we don't know how much prior to client choice was gone to waste, right? We're giving this food out, and we don't know if the families really need what you guys were giving out and if it was actually being utilized. So this seems like you have dialed down and strategically created some efficiency in making sure that every return on dollar is being utilized most efficiently. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Justice Ecke?
Thank you. Once again, what percentage is going to pay for salaries?
There will be 0% for salaries. This is a pass-through grant, so every dollar that we would receive will be given to our agency partner in Washington County to help them, like we talked about, just either serve more neighbors, serve neighbors healthier foods, or help them become client choice.
What other fundraising mechanisms do you all use? I mean, y'all are always on the news, and it's great to hear the support that everybody gives you. So what other mechanisms do you have other than grants?
We're completely blessed. I mean, other than grants, we have a large donor base that's very generous to us. We often call on foundations and corporations, and they're very generous too. Working for the Northwest Arkansas Food Bank is wonderful in so many ways, and the support that we receive from this area, and really in Washington County as much as anyone, if not more, we're happy about, we're proud of. And so we do call on those folks. I have a development department. We call on those folks on a regular basis, and they help us out in a lot of ways. Sometimes with, mobile pantries or school pantries or any kind of partner agency of ours that we can get food out into people's hands quicker. It's just important to us. So we do call on a lot of folks. That's true. And I'd love to say as a director of development that we have 100% rate for success, but we don't. We do our best. We work hard, but we do call on other folks.
Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
oh, certainly.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Justice Ricker?
You had said several times that you'll do this as a pass-through. Are you passing the money, if you receive any of this money, are you passing it through to other organizations, or are you purchasing food and passing that through, and to who?
So it would just be our 46 Washington County partner agencies that would be eligible. We treat it as a grant program, so they would apply through us, and then we would award them the monies through this grant program that we operate at the food bank, which is operated by 6 committee members that are food bank staff. But it would consist of anything from coolers to freezers to shelving to possible technical equipment to food purchase to things like that. So does that help?
That helps a little bit. And on the audit requirements, because it is ARPA money and there's auditing requirements on that. The county has auditing requirements on whoever they decide to give some of the money to. do you audit the money that you give out and what they do with it, or once you give it to them, it's?
No. Yes, sir. We have a very stringent process where they have to show receipts for what's been purchased. They have a report that they have to give back to us, and any of the dollars that they don't spend on what they have been granted for, they give that back so we can grant to another partner agency that will have an opportunity to build their capacity. So I hope that, you know, so
Okay.
no,
I think it
we
does.
have so we can show you so far we've started this program in the third quarter of 21, and we can show you everything that's been purchased by a partner agency and what money was spent on that item.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Justice Secchi?
Yeah, thank you, Judge. I forgot to ask you, who are some of your partner agencies?
We have everyone from Full Circle on U of A's campus to INRA, which serves our Marshallese, the majority of our Marshallese community in Springdale. We also have Returning Home, that you guys were talking about earlier. That's one of our agency partners there in Springdale. We have St. James here in Fayetteville that does a wonderful work and serves a lot of folks. Feed the 479 is another one. We also have Grace Place, which is out in Lincoln, and they definitely are. They're serving folks 4 days a week, and you know there's not a lot of people close to them either. So, anymore, does that help a little bit?
That's
on how
very
many?
helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You bet.
I went off the rails when we were talking about these sub-recipients. Let me ask you this, if the unlikely but most unfortunate case happens and their money is spent in an improper way, who's on the hook for that? Will you guys reimburse the county in the name of the organization?
Yes, we will.
Okay. Justice Rio Stafford?
Thank you, Judge. I just wanted to mention that Casey and I used to work together. And I wanted to say how proud I am of you for just the success that you've had personally and the great work that you're doing in the community. It's really awesome to see.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Additional questions? Thanks for being here this evening.
Thank you.
Thank you all for your service and time.
With that, we're going to move on to item I, Responder First. Do we have representatives with Responder First this evening? Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Casey Dawson.
And I'm Josh Hill.
I am one of the founders of Responder First. I'm also a licensed professional counselor here in Fayetteville and a certified first responder counselor. Responder First is a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to take care of our first responders in our community through education, training, consultation regarding mental health. We're asking for $60,000. This would allow us to hold 4 post-critical incident seminars within our county. This would treat fire, police, dispatch, and EMS. A post-critical incident seminar is a 3 to 3.5 day seminar. This is peer-based and mental health clinician-based, all volunteering their time to provide counseling services, training, and education to a specific group. So if we held a post-critical incident seminar, it would be 12 to 15 police officers. Another one would be 12 to 15 fire. They're very specific. We know that the average person in this room will experience 3 to 4 critical incidents in their lifetime, where a first responder will experience 800. The cumulative stress takes a toll, physically, mentally, on the family. While we know all of this, we know that COVID wreaked havoc on our first responders. Their continued exposure to the public, change in policies within agencies was an additional stress, and we would hope that these post-critical incident seminars would be able to help take care of the first responders who help take care of us.
Questions for Ms. Dawson or Mr. Hill? Justice Dennis?
Thank you, Judge. What is the percentage that you keep for admin charges, administrative charges?
0. This is all volunteer-based.
Okay, so none of the money goes to pay for salaries or
No,
any administrative?
absolutely
costs?
not.
Well, good, thank you.
Additional questions? Justice Secchi?
Thank you, Judge. Have you worked with Sheriff Cantrell
I have.
and John Luther in my emergency?
Yes.
So you all have done this?
Josh,
Have you-
I have been a part of another nonprofit down in central Arkansas.
Okay.
We've been doing this work since 2016. I have been all over the United States helping with post-critical incident seminars and other locations.
We have the.
Yeah,
so
pull up
You're
so
gonna have to
that
get
way
real
we
close to
can, we
that,
can
yep.
hear.
We have, the sheriff's office does their own thing, have their peer program. What we do, we're trying to reach out to the ones in Washington County, all of our volunteer, and Ms. Dawson was talking about the fire department. Most of these that we're talking to is the volunteer community of fire departments throughout the counties. They don't get the support of what a paid volunteer or a paid department has, and that's what we're trying to reach out to. Like I said, we do this all of our own volunteer time. We don't get paid nothing for it. And myself, I am part of that volunteer world. I'm a chief at one of the volunteer departments and have been through this stuff before now, and that's why we're asking.
Okay. Thank you.
Justice Simons?
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to keep on with my kind of consistent questioning is, do you feel comfortable in your capacity to meet the auditing requirements that are passed along?
Yes.
Awesome. And have you sought other ARPA funding opportunities from the cities or other counties or anything like that?
No, we wanted to serve all of Washington County, not limit it to a city specifically.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Questions or comments? Justice Rios Stafford?
Thank you. Thank you, Judge. I might have missed it at the beginning. How many individuals, if you got this grant, how many individuals would this serve?
We'd like to hold 4, and each one would be able to serve 12 to 15 first responders.
Thank you.
Questions or comments? Thank you for being here this evening.
Thank you.
Item J, do we have representatives from the Ronald McDonald House? Welcome.
Good evening. I am Lindsay Dixon, the Chief Development Officer for Ronald McDonald House Charities of Arcoma. We are requesting a little over $70,000. We were about 30% down in 2021 in our overall fundraising. This funding will go to help continue serving Washington County families that are staying in our Ronald McDonald House that is in Washington Regional Medical Center. These families that are staying with us have critically ill children, and we will provide them with emergency housing, rooms, meals, and services. So 28% of our families that have stayed with us in the past 3 years, this is kind of where our dollar amount that we requested came from, are from Washington County outside of Fayetteville and Springdale proper, so the smaller towns surrounding. And so this funding request is for that percentage specifically that is within our program budget just for our Washington County program.
Questions for Ms. Dixon? JP Simons?
Finishing up some notes. I'm a little bit more familiar with your organization, so obviously you receive funding from a myriad of other sources. Have you had any ARPA funding from other sources, and how's that going?
We have not had any ARPA-specific funding. We did receive some, of PPP and things like that. We did request from Fayetteville, but we did take that into consideration, and we did the same thing and took our data and requested that specific funding from Fayetteville proper. So we did make sure that these funds will 100% be going to our Washington County residents.
Fantastic, thank you. Thank you for the work that you do.
Yes.
Justice Secchi?
Thank you, Judge. You do have the capacity to receive other grants and other fundraising, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's not Washington County ARPA or BUST?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much, Ms. Dixon.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending some time with us this evening. Yes. Item number K, the Washington County Historical Society. Do I have a representative from the Historical Society? Bum, bum, bum. Okay, well, with that, before we're going to move into public comments next, I would like to entertain a motion. Never mind. Before we move into public, I do want to say, I made a note of myself to remind myself that the justices are saying they're having issues with their email. I really prod you to get with IT and they can fix those. What we went through was an update over the last several weeks. We're updating our email, updating some of our systems, and the side effect of that is it might have kicked you out of your system. But I consider that a critical way to communicate with you guys, and if you reach out to IT, they'll certainly get you taken care of for sure. So with that, I'm going to move on to public comments. What's your point of order, Justice Coger?
Okay, I would like, this group here, we're pretty much a de facto quorum court, and we vote to suspend rules. Why can't we vote to suspend rules and get these people who appeared tonight, the ones that appeared, the A through J, and get them added on to the Finance and Budget meeting for next week? They've waited a long time, and I hate for them to have to wait another month.
Justice Coger, I'm going to be very clear about that.
I'm still speaking.
I'm going to be a staunch hardliner on this. We are not going to vote on anything without an ordinance in front of us as a body.
We vote to suspend the rules all the time, Judge.
That is not an issue of suspending the rules. It's an issue of being responsible and thorough, Justice Coger. And it's not responsible or thorough, even with taxpayer money, to vote on anything without an ordinance in front of us.
I disagree with that.
So that's the ruling of the chair. With that, we're going to move into the public comments. We have a 12-minute public comment period with limit to 3 minutes per person. Public comments.
Can you hear me? Okay. Sarah Moore from Fayetteville, Arkansas. I'm the Executive Director of Arkansas Justice Reform Coalition, and we were one of the applicants that had applied and were deemed ineligible. At no time were we ever contacted with the process that was put in place by the county and told our application was ineligible. We actually were contacted recently by JP Beth Coger and were told that we had the ability to potentially come and show up. And so I heard earlier comments about thinking the application process potentially, wasn't flawed, but there definitely was lack of communication throughout the process. And so I want to appeal to you to really consider, what our community has gone through. We started back in 2020. There was CARES money that came into the community, and many community advocates really asked for that money to get into the community where there was direct aid that was happening, and that was delayed and did not happen. And then we had this windfall of American Rescue Plan money, and by its very nature, it is for disproportionately impacted populations. Many of those that you had the organization deem them ineligible, those are projects that are happening nationally all across the country and across our state. They are funding things like housing in Pulaski County. I don't think that any of these other city and county governments are doing things that are not by the book or are not eligible, and so I really would ask for reconsideration of the process. The time is ticking, though. Folks have been waiting. Many of these nonprofits that you didn't hear from tonight that had appeared here, that had to change their schedules and be here and really wanted to speak with you to share the work they do in the community, have been hanging on by their fingernails. I mean, $100,000, $200,000 is moving for these organizations doing this work in our community, especially housing these very vulnerable neighbors that we have. So we don't have a lot of time. We do have to allocate those funds by 2024 and spend them at 2026. But we have been asked time and time again in this conversation since 2021 to be patient. But you know, many of our community members that are most vulnerable, you know, they don't have much time to continue to wait, and they really rely on the organizations to respond to them that had applied for those funds. And so I just really want to ask for reconsideration of those organizations because they're doing very worthwhile work in our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Public comments.
Jenny Flanagan from Fayetteville, and I think context is important anytime you're considering something. So Washington County received $46 million in ARPA funds, and you guys decided to set aside $2.3 million specifically for nonprofits. 46 nonprofits applied for that $2.3 million. Only 11 of them, 11 out of 46, were deemed eligible. Some of them were deemed ineligible because they forgot to provide their annual budget as part of their paperwork. So I would urge you guys to go back and look at that. I would say that, I don't know if I'd call it flawed, but I would say there's an issue with the process and that maybe that's something that needs to be looked at. So of the 11 of the 46 that are deemed eligible, it's a total of $564,000 that you guys are looking at giving. You set aside $2.3 million for that, and you're giving away $564,000. So the math to me isn't adding up. So what happens when you guys don't use that money for what you set it aside for? You've got the need. You have people who have applied. They maybe missed a step in the paperwork process, and because of that, we're saying, well, they screwed up, so they're ineligible. The need is out there. I would urge you guys to really look at that. From a taxpayer perspective, that's, I don't know. I think that's something that needs to be looked at.
Thank you. Public comments.
Good evening. My name is Lakeisha Edwards. I am the Executive Director for Art Ventures, which is a nonprofit art gallery here in Fayetteville. I am one of those organizations that did receive a letter stating that we were ineligible. And just as she stated, it stated that we missed financial information, which actually was included. We submitted 71 pages worth of everything, including things that were not even requested. Our 990, our budgets, our actuals. So our ineligibility was actually in error, and we're asking for it to be reconsidered. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments.
Sorry. Hi, my name's Whitney Fontenelle. I am the program coordinator of the Diaper Collective. It is a diaper bank through Family Network. We were someone who was also denied. For the reasoning that the NAEDD stated to be eligible as an ARPA-funded project, the group of beneficiaries would need to be narrowed to those in an eligible class. Distributing throughout the community serves any family who uses diapers, not those in an eligible class. But this is an incorrect decision, as our organization serves a qualified census tract, presuming us as eligible by being an impacted nonprofit for the per the U.S. Department of Treasury overview of the final rule, page 23. So it's just frustrating to see that, one, we were not able to speak, and that there are errors. Excuse me. It seems to be that there's just a lot of errors. The other nonprofits are here. You know, we need to be heard. And I think just the overall process of how it was handled, how we were not even informed, Beth Koger informed us that our application was denied, was very unprofessional. And I'm just curious how that came about, how we weren't even, you know, who was going to inform us, I guess, and who didn't decide to inform us, or when was the date that we were supposed to be informed of denial. So.
Thank you. Public comments.
Eighteen 390 South Dutch Mills, Willie Lemming. Judge, Lance, Body, I know this is going to be we've all inherited this deal, this Parker Branch Bridge that we've decided to take down. I've dug through a lot of information. I've done from engineering, I've dug everywhere, and I've yet to find the perfect reason why we destroyed anywhere from $500,000 to $600,000 to $700,000 in a bridge. And I really want the judge and the chief of staff to sit down with me and explain to me why this really had to happen. Because out of all the drawings, and you know, we read in the paper that it's going to take 45,000 yards, going to cost tons of money. In the engineered drawing that y'all paid for, tells you nothing like that. And we knew from day one how tall that bridge was going to be, how much fill that bridge was going to take. Why in the world did we spend the money for engineered drawings if we're not going to follow them? And I've heard several times that it was going to be out of place and look ugly. We knew that from the beginning. And we tried to blame it on the last administration. There is not one piece of paper that I've dug up that's got the last administration. The last administration, the only man that's gone is Joseph Woods. Everybody else still works here. We can't blame it on the past administration. Carl Gales was not at fault. Charles Ward was not at fault at any of this stuff. I believe we need some more answers. And I believe that there's going to be people that need to be held accountable for what's happened here. We can't just throw this kind of money out the window. It's too much. And, you know, we can't get halfway through a project and say, well, it's too ugly, let's tear it down. We get through a jail and we run out of money. We're going to tear it down? I hope not. You know, and you'll see. So if we're going to pay for drawings, if we're going to go the right ways to do all this, you know, sometimes we got to saddle up and finish what we start. We can't stop in the middle of the river. I need more answers, and there's a lot of people in the public needs a lot more answers to this bridge project because we've wasted a lot of money. Thank you.
Public comments.
Hello, my name is Beth Koger. I live at 3661 East Embry Drive in Fayetteville, Arkansas. About the ARPA applications that we voted tonight, that the majority voted tonight not to hear, I just want to read some information from the county website where the ARPA applications were that the applicants went to fill these out. It says, the county board, that's us, has absolute discretion about approving applications for funding. The county board may request additional documents or information from an applicant prior to making a final decision. Again, that's us. So, but we're not able to do that if we don't have them come and have the opportunity to speak to us and provide that information. Applications will be considered and funded until funds are exhausted. We have funds. Our funds aren't exhausted, so we could still fund. During the consideration process, the ARPA administrator, but we don't have an ARPA administrator, so that comes back to us. We may request additional documents or other information concerning the project or business submitting the application. And number 6, applicants will be notified once the decision regarding their funding request has been made. And I asked the county 2 times to notify applicants, and nothing was done. And speaking to what Justice Lemming just spoke about, I also would like to be able to get return phone calls and answers to my emails from the county. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, public comment period has expired, and we'll stand adjourned.